and welcome to the latest episode of Off the Fence, brought to you in association with BoyleSports. You know the drill by now. This is your go-to weekly jumps digital programme, and you need to hit subscribe on our At The Races YouTube channel so that you don't miss a single episode, because this is where you get the goods if you're a jumps fan, because I have the best in the business joining me week in, week out. They include Tony Keenan and Barry Geraghty, and without further ado, we can check straight in with them. Week before Christmas, Tony, how are the festivities over there? Are you feeling in the jolly spirit at this point?
Yeah, definitely. Took the kids up to Dublin Zoo on Saturday there to look at their light display. That was a nice day out, and we've plenty of racing now to lead into it with the few postponed meetings been run early this week. It's a grand run in.
Nice, okay, so gradually getting into the Christmas spirit. What about you, Barry, and the family as well? Is the sort of festivities high over there?
Oh, definitely, yeah. Everyone's ready for Santa Claus and lots of excitement. Got the Christmas shopping done, so no, all geared up, ready to roll.
Good. Well, look, guys, obviously you've touched upon it there. We've had plenty of cancelled meetings, which has been disappointing. We've missed some good racing, of course, plenty of the races being rescheduled for Kempston on Boxing Day, including the Long Walk Hurdle, which we will get to in due course. But the little bits of racing that we have got, we'll take a look at now in our What Happened Where section for this week. And really the action was all today at Punchestown, the rescheduled meeting for the John Durkan over there, and we got to see Galopin make his seasonal reappearance, and he won it in emphatic style. Barry is now 7-4 for the Gold Cup with BoyleSports. I guess a little bit similar comments apply to what we were seeing when Energumene made his reappearance just 10 days ago or so. It was kind of, he did what he had to do, and did he impress you is the question.
Oh, very impressive in every sense. I suppose the one thing we needed to see him do was to relax, because he did get a little bit aggressive in his style of racing last season, a little bit brave at some of his fence for the same reason too, but he was very relaxed from word go. Lifetime Ambition took him along, he switched off. Paul was very comfortable at every stage. He was brave at one or two fences, but generally he was fairly clever. Pinged the third last, got in close to the second last, measured the last really well, and pulled away from Factor de Ries, who's a good horse, and he pulled away, beat him 13 lengths, so really good performance. You couldn't find any fault in from me.
Oh, faultless from Barry. Would you concur those thoughts, Tony, or would you have liked to have seen anything different from him if you were to pick holes?
No holes to be picked here. They're certainly riding him like a horse that they want to stay at trip, reverting from the forward going tactics last year, dropping them in. He seems to be settling very well. Look, it'll be interesting to see where he does go next. Willie Mullins would have had a long time affinity with the Irish Gold Cup at Leopardstown, the Dublin Racing Festival, but he has gone off that race a little bit in recent years with the ground concerns and the chase track there. Aside from that, I'm not sure there is another obvious 3-mile race. Bobby Joe at Ferryhouse would be too close. Look, they're making all the claims that he is going to be a Gold Cup horse. The only thing I would say is it is up 6 furlongs in trip. It's difficult to replicate the kind of test that Gold Cup is. And then there's the lurking thing about Allaho and his well-being in the background. So I think he will go to Gold Cup, and all the noises are that he will. But there are a couple of little question marks there. The stablemate probably been the main one that would be leaving the Ryanair door open just a crack anyway. But today was a really good performance. Lifetime Ambition type of horse that always goes a gallop in his races, and he just did everything right.
And leaving that Ryanair door open just a crack, as you put it, Tony. The stable's done that before. We've had last minute switches to the Ryanair from the Gold Cup in the past. So I suppose it's not something that can be completely discounted. But God, it would break a few people's hearts, I think, at this point, if he was to be a late switch to that route. But time will tell. It was a good day for Team Mullins, Barry, because they also had Appreciate It make his chase debut. Again, pretty impressive from the front. He looked a bit... I don't know if I actually wasn't impressed with him. I thought at times he looked a bit like he was dossing in front, and I guess that's not necessarily a negative, but he just looked like he was kind of only putting in half the amount of effort he probably has in his locker anyway at this stage.
I think that was it. And his jumping was very good as well too. He made it very easy for Paul, popped away. Albeit he met the last on a bit of a long stride. Paul gave him a squeeze, but he figured it out himself. And that could have been a costly mistake. But he was very professional about it. He landed very solid on landing and galloped away well. But he was only ever doing as much as he needed to through the race. Jumping was really good. I think he could step up and trip if he wants, but with the pace he showed when he won the Supreme, albeit it'll be 2 years ago in March, he looked to have no problem at 2 Mile Down. I can't imagine it would be a big problem for me because he jumps so well over a fence is a big help, because he just find that little bit of speed there, because he would find life a little bit easier.
Okay, interesting. What about you, Tony? He's currently been he's 5-1 for the Arkle with BoyleSports as things stand at the moment. Obviously behind a very short price favourite in John Bon, a very different type of horse. Would you have any interest in him for the Arkle?
I wouldn't mind him. Today was fine. You have to forgive the fact that he's only had one run in basically a year and a half prior to that. He had a long time off, and was the preparation for the Champion Hurdle last year was less than ideal. I thought his jumping was okay. He was inclined to shift a little bit left at a few fences. He has done the vast majority of his racing left-handed. I think the only other time he ran right-handed was in his maiden hurdle at Cork, so perhaps going back left will suit. I do wonder though if maybe up and trip will suit him now at this stage of his career. They will probably persist to 2 miles for as long as he remains unbeaten. But he was that 2.5 mile bumper winner at Leopardstown way back, and I just wonder if maybe the further will suit him now. He's quite old now to be going Novice Chase, and he was quite an old bumper horse at the time, and he had 2 seasons hurdling, so maybe the 2.5 miles might be more his thing.
Okay, we might see better of him over further then. Barry, it would be remiss of us not to, we tend to talk about horses only on this show, but we do cover a couple of other topics too, and it would be remiss of us not to give a mention to Davy Russell, who of course announced his retirement at the weekend with immediate effect off the back of a winner for Gordon Elliott, and he jumped off and said, "That's my last ride, I'm over and out." I think it surprised a few people. Other people seem to suspect that it might be coming, but just a bit of an opportunity to give a tribute to him. He's obviously a friend of yours. You rode with him for many years and retired before him, but you must be pleased, like we all are, to see him go out in one piece, because I think that seemed to be a pretty genuine and real concern that he might be one of those jockeys to potentially ride until something happened that meant that he couldn't ride anymore, but instead he's going out happy, healthy and on a winner. Pretty good result.
Yeah, definitely, and it was great to see it, but I think a lot of people have been expecting it for the last couple of years, but Davey kept pushing it out and caught 1 or 2 by surprise with his timing, but it was brilliant for him. He's 43, he's had a brilliant career and a brilliant jockey at every stage, always fully committed. You know, you'd never have Davey backing out of a challenge. If anything, the opposite, because you wouldn't get an awful lot of room if you needed a bit of room. Davey kept it tight. You know, he was very driven, committed, dedicated, very strong on a finish, brilliant all-rounder, great horseman, great jockey, and I think his ride on Lord Windermere to win the Gold Cup a few years back, that was brilliant, because that race was up for grabs, and he made the most of it. So Davey, not many opportunities slipped through his fingers. He was a top-class jockey.
Come on, there must have been one race somewhere. Lord Windermere was him sort of at his best, and that's been touted around as a real sort of one of his better rides at the sort of top table. But there must be one that's maybe a more personal race to you, Barry, where he either nicked it on the line from you, surprised you in some way, or screwed you over in some way. There must have been a real heartbreaking. I feel like he's the sort of jockey who gave no inch anyway to you other lads.
No, I never gave too many inches away. I suppose the one he got me on was Solwit get up to beat Punjabi in the Punchestown Champion Hurdle in 2009. I think it was after Punjabi had won the Champion Hurdle in Cheltenham, and Davy came and done me on Solwit. Yeah, that one wasn't nice to take, but I got a few back. I beat him in Cheltenham in the last couple of years in the Pertemps and the Coral, I think, so I got a couple back as well. But no, brilliant rider, and he was never far off the money.
Nah, absolutely, he'll be missed, but I think like I said earlier, plenty of people very happy to see him go out in one piece and with a winner. It's time to do our Christmas racing preview. Loads of racing to get stuck into, as you would expect. Now, The asterisk here is we are recording before a few entries have come out for some races at Kempton, but also not got all the markets up at this point. So we're going to do the best we can with what we have. It still remains that there is plenty of top class names to talk about. No better place to start than Boxing Day, King George, Kempton. Here we go, Tony. Currently, Brave Man's Game is the 13-8 favourite. Lahon Press in there at 2-1. Hitman for obviously Paul Nicholls as well at 7-2. Envoy Allen in there at 6-1 and Frodon at 14s. Now, I am buzzed for this race. I feel like Brave Man's Game, this is his everything. I feel like this has been on his radar for about 2 years. Massive target trainer in Paul Nicholls, and I just, no stone is going to be left unturned. This is his big day. But you know I'm a big Lahon Press fan, so I'm sort of torn over Tim at 2-1. And then there's Envoy Allen in there as well for the Irish contingent. Where are you looking for the winner of this race, Tony?
Well, like you've already said there, Vanessa, we're working a little bit in the dark without the 5 days here. So if I'm leaving out a lot of horses here, talking about these races, just keep that in mind. I'm going to try and pick a few angles into these different races, and a lot of them are actually quite negative. I'm going to start with one here in the King George. The only real opinion I have here is I don't like Envoy Allen. I think he was very fit for Down Ryle. That's a meeting he's been readied for every season. Prior to, I think he's 4 from 4 at the track. And I thought it was a little bit of a race that fell apart. The 5 of them all jumped poorly. He was just least bad of the 5 rather than been particularly good. He's had these sort of well-documented wind issues at this point that Henry de Bromhead has chatted about, and I'm not sure that this track will suit him. It might be a little bit tight for him. I thought Rachel Blackmore had a fierce hold of him coming into the straight at Down Ryle, and as soon as she kind of went for him, he started hanging. So I'm really just not sure that this place will suit, and I wonder, might there be a small chance that they would think of switching back to Leopardstown now that if there was any issue with a Plutard, because I know he was not fully confirmed for the race when last mentioned. But if he does pitch up here, I would be inclined to be against him for sure.
Oh, okay, that could be interesting. What about you, Barry? Are you keen on anything particularly, or have a strong negative view like Tony?
I don't think it's the strongest renewal of the race. Brave Man's Game is a horse who's, it's been talked up a lot and he's promised a lot, but his bare form to me is questionable. He beat Eldorado Allen 3 lengths, getting £3 off him in the Charlie Hall in Wetherby. Obviously it was said that he will improve for the run, but Eldorado Allen is 16-1, so there's not a lot between them on that form, if you like. But for me, Lahon Press really impressed him in the rehearsal. He coasted through that race, won comfortably off 164. He went up £6 for that. That wasn't good to soft ground. The ground at Kempton, there's a good bit of rain forecast during the week, so they think it'll be good to soft, maybe soft in places. So that's ideal for him. But if you go into Lahon Press's form, he won the Scilly Isles over 2.5 on good to soft as well. He beat Mr. Coffey 21 lengths, who was probably unlucky in the Kinmure at the festival when he's finished second. But further 6 lengths back was Pic Dory, who won the Peterborough only last month. So I think for me, Lahon Press will be the one. I think his form will stand out. Hitman, a little bit like Brave Man's Game. He's been trained by Paul Nicholls. He's been talked up for the race. If he wasn't being trained by Paul Nicholls, for me, I wouldn't be considering him. So I don't think it's a vintage renewal. I think Lahon Press is the classiest horse in the race. Good to see the little bit of juice in the ground, because I think he's the one to have to beat.
And Lahon Press, Barry, is the only horse really in the front view in the market who we will be looking at as this being a step on the road to the Cheltenham Festival in terms of a Gold Cup picture, wouldn't it? Because we don't have that. I don't think people really have that in mind for Brave Man's Game or Hitman or Envoy Allen or Frodon, etc., etc. So he'd be the one that if he was to put up a sparkling performance, we could really latch on to him going forward to the Gold Cup.
Well, he's the one with the potential. At that trip over around Cheltenham, like Brave Man's Game ducked the festival last year, and Paul has mentioned maybe he's not a Cheltenham horse. Like, that's a big negative for me as well. Like, if Brave Man's Game is all he's supposed to be, I don't see why Cheltenham would be such an issue. You'd roll the dice and you'd take your chance, I think. So for me, Lahon Press is the horse with the potential, and he's the one. He's the one in it for me.
Yeah, me too, I think, in that race. Barry, let's give a quick mention to a couple of the other races on the card at Kempton over the Christmas period. Kicking off with the Christmas Hurdle. Again, we don't have any odds for this yet, but we expect to see Constitution Hill here. And could this just be a carbon copy of the field that we saw up at Newcastle for the Fighting Fifth, do you expect?
It could be that way. I suppose there's a chance if I like to move it coming in here or Nappers Hill. I like to move it, loves it around Cheltenham, and I'd say would have been ideal for him. But Nappers Hill put in a good performance in Wincanton, and he is a horse on the up. It would be a big step up from what he's done to trouble Constitution Hill and what he's been doing. But I think he's a horse going the right way, and he's definitely one you would respect.
Okay, bit of respect to him, but as long as we see Constitution Hill, that's all I want over the Christmas period. And a quick mention also to Long Walk Hurdle. Now, we did discuss this on the show last week, but of course the card was abandoned due to the frost at Ascot, so we missed that, and now it's been transferred over to Kempton on Boxing Day, meaning that the Boxing Day card is going to be absolutely exceptional. But has your view changed, Barry? Champ and Paisley Park in there, along with a few others, everyone on for the rematch. But now that it's moved to Kempton, we're not really talking about the same race we were talking about when it was run at Ascot, are we? Two very different tracks.
Exactly, yeah. Now, Kempton, obviously, more emphasis on speed, so it's not the level of stamina that you would have in Ascot or Newbury where they met the last time, or Cheltenham for that matter. I suppose a couple of negatives about it, and one being Paisley Park. Will that track be a little bit sharp from? Will it play to his strengths as in the test of stamina he needs? I'm not sure it will. Champ, on the other hand, I think would be better suited by that, but he hasn't really backed up his first run of the last two seasons. He did better this year than last year, but he got beaten by Paisley Park and Cheltenham on his next run last season, having won the Long Walk Hurdle at Ascot, and Paisley Park had given him a head start. So I suppose the slight positive was that Nicky was willing to run him back last week in the Long Walk Hurdle, which is a quick enough turnaround, if you like, from Newbury. But question marks about those. For me, Arsu's on the up. His Botox has. He put up a good performance when winning Haydock. He's a 6-year-old. He's on the up. He won the National Spirit in Fontwa last season and probably caught a few by surprise, but looking back at that form, it mightn't be just such a big a surprise. So he was a good winner over 3 Mile in Haydock. I think he's a little bit of each way value when you have question marks over the top two of the market.
Okay, bit of a sneaky one coming in here now that it's been run at Kempton. Elsewhere as well, Tony, the Novice Chase, we've got the Desert Orchid and the Wayward Lad, potentially seeing John Bon in the latter. I think we will see him. And what are your hopes for him on his reappearance? Short price favourite for the Arkle already. Everyone getting terribly overexcited about him. Is this going to be another procession?
It could well be. I've just been thinking about John Bon over the last week or so, and his price for the Arkle and his likely price for this race if he takes part. Much discussed why he's the price he is. Part of it is the overall weakness and lack of depth in the English novices. I suppose part of it is his breeding. But I also think his times are part of it. Now, you know, from me boring you all to death over the last couple of years, I do like the times. But there are definitely occasions when the times become baked into the market too much. Now, he's done a time that compared quite well to Edwardstown, particularly sort of from 3 out at Sandown. But that comparison would also suggest that Boot Hill is not, too bad either. And I don't know, do we really believe is Boot Hill all that brilliant? So I'm just going to be a little bit ignorant now with John Bon, I think, and take the fact that the times might be baked into his price a little bit too much. And I'm actually going to keep an eye out for other horses like that. The times are useful, but there are occasions when they're in the market too much. And I think with John Bon, it might possibly be one. And sometimes these races, like the Tingle Creek versus the King Henry VIII, where you can put the novices against the experienced horses, or say the Dublin Chase versus the Irish Arkle at Leopardstown, it just leads to sometimes the obvious novice being overrated when it's just a function of how the race was run rather than their actual ability. So just something to bear in mind with John Bon. I'm not saying he can't win an Arkle. Of course he can. He's been very good. It's just, is he a little bit skinny because of his time comparison with Edwardstown?
Okay, the times coming into it. I think people are, you say you're boring us, but we love the times, Tony, on this show, and it's something that people are latching onto more and more, I've found, over the last couple of years anyway. Barry, we can give a quick mention to the Welsh National one run on the 27th of December at Chepstow, of course, and Quick Wave is currently the 5-1 favourite for that. The Galopin Bear in there at 7-1, the Big Dog as well, and Ask Me Early is an 8-1 shot. All those prices, of course, with BoyleSports. Is there anything jumping out the page at you at this point, Barry?
Well, Quick Wave's performance in Sandown in the London National, that was really good. He has a £9 penalty for it, but he has to carry £4. The Big Dog, the same for his performance in the Triton. He has a £4 penalty as well. The Big Dog will love conditions. He loved the track, but for me, Quick Wave was really exciting in Sandown. Venetia, obviously a brilliant target trainer. Hers generally love a bit of juice in the ground, and he has form on soft and heavy ground. He's won his last 2 since a wind up as well, so he's got plenty of positives for him. The other in there is the Galloping Bear, who got disqualified for a illegal substance when he won the national trial in Haydock last season. He beat Bristol to May. There was only 3 of the 11 finishers that day. 3 of the 11 runners finished with the 8 of them pulling up, so that was a war of attrition. So conditions should suit him as well. But for me, how Quick Wave won in Sandown would be the one.
Okay, Quick Wave has impressed you and is at the top of the market, but 5-1 in a race like that might take some people's fancy. Let's move on to Ireland, Tony, and loads of unknowns in terms of where horses are going to run and what's going to line up. But we're going to kick off with the Leopardstown 2-mile Grade 1 Novices Chase, where Phil Dorr is the even money favourite, and you've touched upon there already, Tony, about John Bon and the Arkle market and the 2-mile novices in England, sort of that not really taking shape yet, with the exception to John Bon, but it kind of feels the same over in Ireland as well. And Phil Dorr, I if you had predicted that he'd be even money for a Grade 1 at Christmas at the start of the season, I wouldn't have believed you. But this is the situation we've ended up in, with the being question marks over plenty of the other horses in the market.
Yeah, I'd say he'll even be shorter on the day, looking at the likely runners. These novice chases, these graded novice chases, now I know I lost a lot of money on these races last year trying to be too clever, taking on the obvious horses. I know St. Sam in the Grade 1s he ran in the spring was probably responsible for about half of those losses. I kept doing things wrong. But I felt I was trying to be too clever, looking for a horse that could maybe upset the market leaders. But I think those races were thin last season, and I think they're still a little bit thin this season. I think they're going to be quite thin at Christmas. Part of that is Willie Mullins hasn't had some of his better ones out. We see the likes of Appreciated only coming out today. Flame Bearers due to run at Naas. There'll be others that will take their beginners chase in over Christmas. So I think being clever here might not be the way to go in this race or in the sort of equivalent race down in Limerick on the same day. Field Door, I just really don't see what's going to take him on. Maybe his own stablemate Hollow Games will go there. But there's also a race for him in Naas in early January. Banbridge, I suppose, is possible. He might like better ground than he met in the Drinmore, and I think the ground, certainly Yielding was mentioned in the first description out of Leopardstown. Impervious is a possible, but again, it wouldn't really be Colin Murphy's way to run her back so quickly, and I also think she'd be on her head now on 2 miles on decent ground. Her jumping only just hung in at Cork there on slowish ground the last day, but yeah, Field Door very much the one to beat, and probably be odds on the day.
Okay. Do you have anything else to add about that race, Barry? Anything elsewhere away from the favourite, given what Tony's just said there?
No, I'd be very much with Field Door as well. He jumped really well in Navan. Thought he was very professional down over the last couple, so no, he'll be very hard to beat. And the race does lack a bit of quality, but I think he's a smart performer.
And talking about the Limerick race as well, the Grade 1 down there, the Faheen Novices Chase. Again, we don't have prices with BoyleSports at the moment, but over the 2 miles through, we could see Jerry Colomb, we could see Kilcrut, Mighty Potter as well. But again, a horse who has plenty of options at the different trips. And Tony, we wouldn't really be expecting. I mean, it'd be natural for Gordon to be trying to keep a lot of these good horses away from each other. What do you expect to line up down in Limerick?
I think he's basically said Jerry Colomb's going to run as long as all goes well between now and then. He wasn't a horse I liked in Novice Hurdles at all, but to be fair to him, he kept winning, and he was winning around places like Taurus on decent ground, which was never going to suit. And when he got onto the bad ground at Ferry House for his beginner's chase, I thought he was really impressive. jumped very well, did things right, showed plenty of speed for coming back to 2.5 miles. To me, he would look like a 3 miler. He's very much the one to beat. The third horse out of that now was disappointing at Thurles on Sunday, Tenzing. That's one possible knock, but he would be deserving favourite to me. I'm not really a fan of Kilcrit. I think a slog around Limerick is not really what he wants. They were wondering last year, they stayed 2.5, and maybe the main Mullins runner here will be the other one, the Cheveley Park Horse Classic Getaway. I'm not sure he wants to go up to 3 based on what he did at Goran on really testing ground. I thought he was quite free. I think having proven himself on that sort of really bad ground, maybe they'll go to Limerick and he could be the biggest challenger to Geraghty. But again, wouldn't be mad keen to take on the favourite at all.
Okay, another one getting the favourite getting a nod anyway. Back up to Leopardstown, Barry, and if Energumene doesn't run in the 2 mile grade 1 up there, it leaves that race very weak indeed, doesn't it? Like, I mean, he's the star we want to see, and it's looking like it's very unlikely we're going to see him, in which case it might as well be a grade 3 with the standard of horse that's going to show up.
Well, I'm not sure about that.
Oh, come on, get off the fence.
We'd love to see an argument there, but it's not likely Willie's going to run him back in a 16-day turnaround after his first run. But Chacun Poursuit has won this race in the past. He's been second in it. He's a grade 1 winner. Blue Lord is a grade 1 winner too. He would be the danger. But Chacun Poursuit should be the one to beat. Second to Energumene at the Punchestown Festival. Blue Lord beat Course Sublime at the Punchestown Festival. And his time, as Tony flagged up in the Clonbell Isle, wasn't amazing either. So I like Blue Lord, but I think Chacun Poursuit would be the one to be on if Energumene is at home.
Okay, Barry put me right back in my box about being negative about those lesser horses. But Tony, let's give a quick mention to the Paddy Power Chase, the handicap 3 miles, ultra competitive as always, as you would expect up at Leopardstown for this, and such a big prize pot as well. In terms of the horses that are near the top of the market, is there anything, you've said that you've got some negative views? I feel like this is a race you might have some negative points to make about a few that are shorter prices anyway.
Yeah, the 2 horses I suppose that have been strong in the market in the last week or so, Panda Boy and Donkey Ears. I don't like either of those. Panda Boy is this obvious plot horse for it. I liked how he did it in Punchestown. He looked a real stayer, but his 2 runs since he's returned from the break have offered very, very little. Whether his jumping will hold up in a race like this remains to be seen. And his stable are quite quiet now. I know Martin Braz will be operating on a smaller string, but he's only had 1 horse win. The same horse has won twice since Panda Boy won back in late May. So I'm not sure about their stable form at the moment. So be against him. And Donkey Ears is the JP McManus horse. I just think he's a bit of a follower. He tends to sort of come there to win his race and just doesn't want to go through with it. I know he has won at Punchestown there, but on balance, I wouldn't like him to go through it in the finish. Now look, this race can set up for a horse that maybe doesn't particularly fancy it. Schoolboy Hours won. Sean Flanagan gave that an amazing ride to win there recently, but by and large I don't like backing horses like that, so I'll bet something in the race, but it won't be either of those that have been gambled in.
Okay, sticking up at Leopardstown, and the Stayers Hurdle up there has been renamed this year the Jack de Bromhead Christmas Hurdle, and I think everyone concurs that that's a lovely touch by Leopardstown, the sponsors and all involved, to name the race after the young lad Jack de Bromhead. And it could be one of the races of the meeting, given that we get to see the rematch between Classical Dream and Flooring Porter. Obviously Classical Dream beating Flooring Porter in the race last year and is currently 9-4 to get the better of him again this time around, Barry. That's with BoyleSports, of course, and Flooring Porter in there at 5-2. Bob Ollinger back over hurdles, next best at 100-30, home by the Lee at 5-1 as well. It's a really competitive renewal of the race. Loads of people expect Classical Dream to follow up his win in the race last year, but I think there's plenty of depth behind him, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. No, it's a strong renewal. Obviously last year's form of Classical Dream and Flooring Porter is there. You'd imagine Flooring Porter will improve tons for his run in Navan. He fell in that race last year when he looked like he was a horse who was just blown up at the time. So obviously he reversed the form then at the festival. But no, it's a strong race. But for me, Bob Ollinger, I thought he ran a great race in Navan. Travelled too well, probably got to the front too early, just didn't see it out as well. But he didn't see it out because he didn't have a run under his belt. Home by the Lee had a run under his belt in Downryle when it ducked out at the second last. So he was fit. He was the only one of two horses in the race who'd had a previous run. So for me, with the gallop they went that day in Navan, it was end to end. As I say, Bob Ollinger travelled too well for Rachel, probably got involved too early and just didn't see it out as well. But purely for me, just out of fitness, he won the Ballymore a few seasons ago over 2-5 as a young horse. He had no problem getting the trip then. So I'm very sweet in Bob Ollinger. I think he's the one to put it up to Florence Porter and Classical Dream. And Home by the Lee as well. It has to have a chance as well, but I would see a reversal between Bob Ollinger and Home by the Lee is definitely.
Okay, Bob Ollinger, the horse that so many people know and think has this huge engine in there. Do you think he can deliver a Grade 1 win over this sort of trip, over hurdles? Tony, are you with Barry or against him here at 100 to 30, Bob Ollinger?
I'd be against Barry on this one. I thought Henry de Brom had left the impression that he was very fit for Navan, as fit as he could have him. And also the market spoke very strongly for him. To me, he's a horse that, if he wants anything, look, he just looks like a horse with a physical problem to me. He curled up a bit when it come to a battle with Home by the Lee. Look, if he can be finessed into a race where he hasn't had the battle, he can win, but that seems unlikely against some of these horses that stay the trip very well. He'd be the kind of horse I wouldn't like to back for any race. Just the attitude seems to have crept in, or is it a physical issue? I don't know. He's always held his head high, and I think something is niggling at him. This is often, I've kind of decided that nothing can win this race off the front end, which probably isn't a great, probably chance something at a price. Classical Dream, I think, as I mentioned after Fairy House, I just wonder if it come a bit too soon for him. He disappointed last year in the Galway, running back at Goran after a hard race in this race, and this will be coming quite soon after Fair House. Now, Willie Mullins may adapt and may not run him. I wouldn't think that's a massive price that he'll leave him out and just keep him fresh, because he does seem to be a horse that goes well off a break. Florence Porter threw the race in here last year in this race, and he also threw a race in an entry against Sire de Berlia. That's not a great record. He's thrown in 2 of his last 4 starts, and he won at Cheltenham, and Danny Mullins gave him a great ride. So you can't have it every way. It was a great ride, so Dusty was flattered by it, was he? So you're looking at his last 4 runs. He's threw 2 of them in. He's flattered by the Stayers Hurdle. He needed run in Navan, that's fair enough. So I just don't know about him. Getting to the lead would be important. If Classical Dream isn't in the race, maybe he gets the lead, and that's that. Home by the Lee was one I was hoping maybe missed by the market, but he doesn't seem to be. He's sort of trading in around the 5, 6, 7 to 1 mark. That's given him full credit for Navan, from what I can see. And maybe one of the Moran's horses, the Bective horses, would have a life here. Queensbrook is one I've been kind of waiting to go up to 3 miles for a while now, getting the mare's allowance. Yeah. She was disappointing in Limerick there, first run back, but she seems to be one of these gross ones that needs a first start, and was impressive enough at Punchestown over 18 furlongs. Trip to be too short. Zana here's not one I'd be given too long of a leash, but he did have genuine excuses for the Navan race to Lismullen. He got quite a wound, I think, and he seemed to get it in jumping a hurdle or two badly. Now his jumping does need a bit of work. Obviously he fell at the entry, and he's also had a breathing operation. I wouldn't be surprised if he ran a little bit better, because he does have that what would seem a real excuse for Navan. So that's kind of where I'm at, leading towards those couple of Nolan and Valerie Moran horses at the moment.
Okay, at the prices then, competitive. It's going to be a really interesting contest, that. As will the Savills Chase, Barry, which has over the years provided some brilliant moments, some brilliant finishes, some surprises as well, and it could go the same way. I mean, you've got a Plutard in there, kind of the 6 to 4 favourite. We're unsure if he's going to run. I hope that he does. Of course, he won the race in 2020. He's second in it last year to Galopin, who reopposes, currently 6 to 1 with BoyleSports in the market. You've got Conflated in there, the horse that's been branded as so tricky over the years. 5 to 2, won, of course, the Irish Gold Cup over the at the track earlier this year. And then the likes of Kenboy at 9 to 1, who won the race back in 2018. Feels like a long time ago. Where to start with this race? I don't know. I'll just hand straight over to you with the simple question of who do you fancy in it?
Well, if Henry happens to turn up at Plutard, he's obviously the one to beat, but would be a little bit surprising.
Even off the back of Haydock. Come on now.
Yeah, so we had an issue at Haydock, but Henry wouldn't run him back unless he felt he was back 100%. So if the issue was that easy to rectify, and and he takes his chance, then I'd have faith in Henry that he has him where he wants him. He is the best horse in the race, but I'd be surprised if he would be ready to run on such a quick turnaround after disappointing in Betfair. So you'd take it for granted, for me anyway, that he doesn't go. So Conflated ran well to a point in Down Royal, probably needed the run, but he's a tricky horse to catch on a right day, so whether he'll miss Davy Russell or not, there's probably a chance of that too. Galvin won the race last year, but he disappointed badly in Down Royal, so he's bounced back a long way from that. But for me, I thought the other Ronnie Bartlett horse, Statler, I thought he's interesting. He won the National Chase last year, like a very classy horse. Horse with lots of pace, jumps well, horse on the up. There's question marks about a lot of them, but for me, he's the horse who's very progressive. He's 3 from 3 over fences, and he could be the one to side with.
Yeah, I think I like that angle in, currently 7-2 with BoyleSports. Tony, would you be with us or against us with the Statler angle, given so many question marks over the favourite in a Plutard, but also the performances of the likes of Galvin more recently?
Yeah, this is a difficult race now. I haven't really come down on anything yet. A Plutard, they do seem to have found something for Haydock. The only concern is throughout his career he has been the most consistent horse, I think never out of the 3, and the Haydock run was just terrible. So is it going to be a little bit of a rush back, or are they happy to get him just to run well rather than necessarily than win? I was looking at Conflated there for the last fortnight at the 4-1 that was there, the 9-2, thinking would I back it. And he's half that now. It just didn't draw me in. I think Barry has hit the nail in the head there. Look, he ran really well in Down Royal. The market would have said he was going to need the run in a big way. He doubled or trebled in price at the off. Travelled well into it. He just is that little bit tricky, and I think missing Davy Russell is going to be a fair negative for him. Look, he likes the place, he likes going left-handed. Wouldn't be a massive surprise if he won it, but kind of 5-2, 11-4 could pass him over. Statler is an interesting horse. I thought that Willie Mullins trained this horse brilliantly last year. Looking at him as a novice hurdler, you would have said there was no way he even got 3 miles, not to mind the extended trip of the National Hunt Chase, but tactics are so important for him, and dropping him in rather than riding him forward really seemed to suit him, and he stays that trip very well. Now, my concern with him is that he was declared for the initial running of the John Dorkin, which would say to me that they were thinking of just starting him off in that race and getting him to, I suppose, to finish out his race well. And this race wouldn't historically be a real Willie Mullins target race. I think he's won it twice. I was looking at there today, twice since 1997. Don Poley won a little bit of a very moderate running of it, and Kenboy won it, of course. He was race fit though. So I just wonder with Statler, would it kind of be a building block rather than the end game? So yeah, don't have a strong opinion or negatives with all of the front ones there. So nothing would really surprise. Galvin again did have an excuse for Down Royal. He scoped badly, but I do think he was found out a little bit in the spring. And and Gordon Elliott commented earlier in the season, I think it was before his Punchestown run, they were talking about the cross country with him. Like that was a massive red flag for me.
Yeah, that would be a red flag for sure. Let's move on to the Matheson, the Grade 1 hurdle over the 2 miles. State Man is currently the 4-6 favourite at the top of the market, and I think this is his planned target. Constitution Hill is priced up at 2-1, but as we've discussed, we expect to see him at Kempton. Sharjah in there at 5-2, and we spoke about this beforehand, Barry, talking about a horse looking to win a race for a 5th time. I kind of had to double check myself that it is 4 he's already won. It's incredible, and the roof would come off the place, wouldn't it, if he was to take a 5th Matheson hurdle?
I doubt Paul Townend will take the roof off if he beats Stateman, but no, I think Stateman could be the one to spoil the party here, but that's no big shock telling you that about a 4-6 shot. But no, it would be a great performance for Sharjah to go and win the 5th one. He scraped in last year against Zana here on soft ground, so that would be the question mark about him. It's on the track that is a flat track that's been watered all summer, so albeit there's issues with the ground being a bit quick on the chase track, the hurdle track that's used at this meeting can be on the slow side, which generally then wouldn't be ideal for Sharjah, but he's managed to win it for the last 4 years. It'd be brilliant to see him win it, but I'd be surprised if he can beat Stateman.
Okay, would you concur with those thoughts, Tony, in terms of the Mullins hierarchy and Stateman being clear cut in terms of, well, I mean, there's a big price difference, and do you think there's that much of a difference in their ability?
Yeah, what price did you say Stateman was there?
Stateman is currently 4-6 with BoyleSports, and Sharjah is 5-2.
Well, that price is totally wrong, the 4-6. because he was 4-9 for the Morgiana, and this before the Morgiana, before we had the evidence that he destroyed them in the Morgiana. So what price does he deserve to be in this 1-3, 1-4? Because he was so dismissive of them. It's just going to be the same horses with the possibility of Vauban, who hasn't had a smooth preparation into it. My concern with Stateman is he going to step aside to let Charger have a fifth run in this, and maybe Stateman will wait to the Dublin Racing Festival. But Charger, to me, in the Morgiana, he looked like a horse now that lost a step. He kind of looked like he wanted to go up to 2.5. But Stateman turns up, he just win it now, and he'd be very, very short. It's just as I say, a rerun of the Willie Mullins race in the Morgiana, and 4-6 would be wrong, but the concern would be, is he actually going to run?
Okay. Angle in there with that, whether he's going to turn up. Fingers crossed he does, because ultimately we want to see the best horses in the best races over the Christmas period. We've covered some of the highlights there, obviously slightly restricted by lack of entries and prices at this stage, but hopefully we have pointed in the right direction of a few winners. Before I sign off for our Christmas break, boys, let's talk about the best bets for the Christmas period, and I will start with you, Tony. If you're sending our viewers home with just one tip for the Christmas racing period, who is it?
Yeah, we'll try anyway. Gaillard de Manie in the Neville Holmes Novice Chase on the 29th. I think he's trading around 11-4 there, general at the moment. In fact, this horse, he's just a class act in this race. He's a 156 rated horse in a race that's probably going to cut up. Willie Mullins, I think, is 8 in this, but looking back at past years, he's never run more than 2 in it, and to me, Gaillard de Manie would be the obvious one. He's the one that would stay the trip, maybe versus Classic Getaway, who might be a 2.5 miler, and Manella Cocooner, who presumably will maybe stick and try and win a beginners rather than go for a grade 1, having yet to win over fences. I thought Gaillard de Manie ran a really good race in the Drinmore. He has a pretty poor record first time out. He's been beaten in both of his seasons since arriving with Mullins. So I thought it was highly encouraging effort. He jumped really well, travelled really well through it himself, and the winner, whose name escapes me at the moment, Mighty Potter, pulled a long way clear from 2 out, and everyone was raving about him after. I thought Gaillard de Manie ran at least as well, with a view to going forward. All the paddock people were saying he would need the run. He's a very good record at Leopardstown too. He's kind of around the same price he is for this as for the National Hunt Chase. I'd much rather back the race that's coming up in whatever 7 or 8 days than have to wait until March. And I also think he might be a little bit better than the National Hunt Chase horse. With a rating of 156, everything else needs to kind of... Paddy Mullins might be too happy about that, but everything else needs to come up to him now with that kind of mark. And 11-4 is perfectly adequate. I'd be hopeful he'd go off a fair bit shorter than that.
Okay, very positive nod, or the most positive nod for Gaillard de Manie then in the Neville Hotels up at Leopardstown. Barry, over to you to match that, please. Let's double up. What's your best bet of the Christmas period?
I think Lahan Press for all the reasons I mentioned earlier on. And if I was to give you one for value, Botak has. I think he's a great price, 8-1 each way.
Okay, I like it. A sneaky one in there as well. You're in a generous mood, Barry. That about wraps up the show. Do not forget the BoyleSports offers that are on your screen right now. Do check them out on the BoyleSports website. They are not to be missed. They're very generous as well, and we thank them for their prices and their offers. And I think that is the end of the show, and that's it for us until just after Christmas and New Year. We will be back to review all the Christmas action. There'll be plenty to get stuck into then, but in the meantime, as always, please do get in contact with us with any feedback. Press subscribe on our YouTube channel, give us a like, give us a retweet, all the usual, please. But do have a very Merry Christmas from all of us on the Off the Fence team. I hope that you have a brilliant Christmas day and that we've pointed in direction of a few winners. But that was Off the Fence. Thank you very much for watching. Have a Merry Christmas.